Hi, I'm Snez, personal trainer, healthy lifestyle coach, and your guide to feeling your best. This podcast is a segment from my weekly radio show, Wellbeing Wednesdays, broadcast live on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. It's all about sharing real, practical tips to help you move more, eat better, and live healthier without the overwhelm. Let's dive in, shall we? Today I wanted to talk to you about one of the biggest myths that I oftentimes hear, and I'm really quite surprised that this still comes up in conversation when I'm working with people. And just this week, someone said to me, just in regards to getting their health back on track and shifting some body fat, and that was, they said, okay, I know what I need to do, just get back to lettuce leaves and just eat less. And the thing is, it's like, wow, why are we still thinking this, and why are we still feeling that this is the only way to achieve the result? And it's interesting that we're still seeing weight loss is heavily associated with punishing ourselves, restricting tiny portions, meat that is cooked so plainly with no flavour, and feeling hungry all the time and tired. And the thing is if you've ever thought, right, I'll just eat less and cut everything that I love and suffer through it for the next 5-6 weeks and then see what happens from there, then this is the segment for you. This is the information that I want you to hear today. Because the thing is that a lot of the times, yes, it is true that we do need to reduce our intake, but that needs to be done in a way that is quite calculated, because a lot of the times the overeating doesn't come at every single meal. It's usually as a reason to the routine that you have in your day-to-day feeding routine. So it could be that maybe you're having a breakfast that's too small, maybe you're skipping lunch, and then you're arriving at dinner and you're just over-consuming. And usually it's that you're not eating either frequently enough, or that your portions aren't big enough, or you're not including the right combinations of food that are giving you that feeling of fullness for longer. So a lot of the times when we default to just eating less, what it can do is we can be determined with that uncomfortable feeling, probably for a couple of days or even maybe a couple of weeks, but then it always lands in some sort of a binge or overeating, or just completely ditching your goals and thinking that it's just way too hard. So the shift needs to happen from that old mindset that we may have grown up with, which was, and it's definitely was there, where weight loss equals eating less, smaller portions, fewer calories, a lot more restricting a lot of different food groups. And on paper, if we're sort of thinking about it, it does sound quite logical. If I eat less, I'm going to lose weight. But the problem is that our body doesn't work like that. It's not a calculator. It's a living, breathing, hormonal adaptive system that pretty much is designed to keep you alive and to keep you functioning optimally for you to be able to do what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. And in particular, especially when you're in your 40s, 50s and beyond, your body is starting to also begin to juggle hormonal shifts in your muscle mass, which basically means you are burning less calories, you're feeling hungrier, but also our busy lives, our stress changes, and the way that we cope with stress changes, our sleep starts to be impacted. And if all you're going to do as a strategy to lose weight is slash your calories, your body doesn't go, okay, this is great, yep, let's just burn up all of this body fat and give Snez exactly what she wants to have. Instead, it's going to think, this feels unsafe. We're in a dangerous territory. We're moving into famine. I better readjust everything, slow everything down to deal with this particular phase. And the body knows that it's temporary, but generally speaking, it will behave in such a way that it will adapt your physiology to protect you at that time. It's not feeling safe. It's not going to release all of that fat willingly. It will release the fat because it will have to use it as fuel, especially if you're really reducing your food intake. But it's going to create a system, a biology that the minute that the food does come back, so the famine is over, or in your case, the minute that you decide that this isn't working for you, you don't want to do this anymore, you don't want to be so self-restricted anymore, and you bring in all of the food that you are normally consuming, then it's just going to, you just would have created a body that is better at storing calories and storing body fat. And you will find that not only do you put the weight back on that you've taken off, but you will also add extra because your body's become very good at storing those extra calories for that next possible famine that you may go into. So yes, you might lose a little bit at the start, but the other thing is that you're also going to lose muscle. And this is another way that our bodies reserve that energy is by decreasing or atrophy of the muscles because they tend to use up so much energy. Now, the other thing that you will find is that as you start to reduce your intake, you will find that your energy starts to vary a lot more throughout the day. So your cravings start to go up. So not only are you having to battle with that discomfort of hunger, but those cravings will get more and more intense as the body fluctuates with the reduced amount of energy that is available. So one thing that you can do instead of taking this old mindset is ask a more powerful question, which is, how can I fuel my body so it has stable energy throughout the day and isn't screaming for sugar, which is just that quick fix energy later on in the day? And when you start to think of it in that way, you start to think about, well, what sort of choices can I make? And this is where it starts to get really important that you understand two simple ideas when it comes to nutrition. And one is calories, which is the amount of energy in food. But then the second thing is the amount of nutrients or nutrient density, which I love to talk about so much. Nutrient density is how many minerals, how many vitamins, how much fibre, and how much beneficial compounds are packed into that food. So how much nutrient value are you going to get out of all of that food? Because you can have the same amount of calories in two different types of foods, and they're going to react and behave very, very differently in your body. So if you had 400 calories, say, of a processed snack, say biscuits or chips or soft drink or a combination of those things, or if you had 400 calories of real food, say, for example, some grilled salmon or tofu, some veggies and a bit of brown rice, it is going to have a completely different impact on your hunger and your fullness, on your blood sugar levels, and therefore the cravings that come throughout the day, the way that your hormones respond, your mood and energy, which impacts the choices that you are going to make. So the biscuits and the soft drink are like, imagine like throwing petrol on a fire. It's fast, it's hot, it's a hot flame, and then it's nothing. So then you're hungry really quickly again. When we look at the salmon and the veggies and the rice, they're going to be more like putting a steady log on the fire. It's going to be a slow, stable burn, but also it just gives your body confidence that you do have enough nutrition over a longer period of time. So when there is that slow release of nutrients through proteins and vegetables and all of that's contained in the salmon and veggies and rice, then you're feeding your body and giving your body exactly what it needs over a longer period of time so that it's less likely to hold on to extra energy that it may be thinking it may need in the future. But also what will start to diminish is those blood sugar variations, which are those cravings. So that could be things like, that may translate to during the day you having another tea or a coffee because you're starting to feel hungry, or walking past and grabbing a chocolate or a piece of fruit and just sort of snacking throughout the day, but also the way that it affects your mood. So one thing that is a better question to ask is not how many calories are in this, but how am I going to feel 1 to 2 hours after I eat this? So, and that's a real indicator because it can also dictate the sort of choices that you're going to make in that moment. So is this meal, if it's higher in protein, fiber, and nutrients and healthy fats is that's going to give you steady energy. It's going to give you a stable mood. It's going to get rid of the cravings, and it's going to give you that ability to focus better, to be more active, and to just function throughout your day. And whereas opposed to if you were to say have a bag of chips, or if you were to have just a chocolate bar or just a can of soft drink or just a coffee, it's going to give you a really quick burst of energy, which will satisfy you temporarily. But you're going to then crash after that because the insulin will respond in an overreactive way to the extra sugar and then will crash you back down. You're going to experience brain fog. You'll have a greater need for more sugar and coffee. So what will happen then is it's just going to lead to greater calorie consumption throughout the day that your body doesn't necessarily need. And so it's really quite important that when we are thinking about that, thinking about, well, okay, if I am going to have this chocolate or these chips or whatever it is, you just start to think about, well, what would help to counteract some of this to make me feel fuller for longer? So you might think to yourself, well, if I'm looking for protein or healthy fats or some extra fibre, maybe can I throw in some veggie sticks with this piece of chocolate? I know it doesn't sound awesome, but it works. Or you might think to yourself, well, let me have a handful of almonds or cashews alongside of this chocolate. And it will firstly decrease the amount of sugary snack that you will be having. It will satiate you, but it's also going to change that blood sugar response and how you're going to feel. So it really is important to start to think less about reducing your intake and thinking more about, well, what can we actually do to increase the nutritional value of what you are having? So some of the things that we need to start to think about is how can I get protein into my meals? And it could be snacks and it could be main meals as well. So rather than reducing, and really going to mono food groups, let's start to think about, well, what can I do to include some protein into this meal? And then think about fibre and colour. So what 2 colours of fruits or vegetables can I get in? And then also thinking about texture and thinking about adding something crunchy or maybe something soft, combining the two, or something really chewy. And the reason being is that when you chew and texture, it actually helps to slow you down and it helps your brain to register fullness. So a plate of soft, mushy, single-coloured food disappears really quickly. Think about potato chips, for example, whereas a plate with crunch is going to take you longer to consume it, which your body is then going to release the nutrients a little bit slower. And usually things with crunch in them are going to have a lot more nutrients because we're talking about things like cacao nibs and seeds and nuts and veggie sticks. So the body will have longer to feel fuller. And so when we're thinking about your intake, start to think about that combination of protein, some colour through veggies and fruit, and then some crunch, whether that be nuts or seeds, to bring in those healthy fats or veggie sticks. So when we're starting to think about improving our diet so that we can shift weight, we're not thinking about reducing our calorie intake so much that we have these huge rebounds, but we're all of a sudden going to change up our meals, the type of meals that we're consuming, so that we get that better combination that's going to allow us to feel fuller for longer with less food. So give that a go. So a simple action for you out there, if you are listening, if we're going to make this really actionable, just start to think about, if you are wanting to shift some weight, think about upgrading your meals so that you decrease the chance of feeling overly hungry and therefore over consuming, or leading to a binge in a couple of days, which will lead to over consuming. So think about adding some protein in, think about adding some fibre in, some veggies, some crunch, some healthy fats, and you're still eating. You're not going to be starving yourself. You don't need to live on those lettuce leaves, but it's also going to taste a lot nicer and you will feel a lot more satisfied, which will then give your body the permission to release some of that stored fat, because it does know that there is a healthy amount of nutrients coming your way, and it won't feel like punishment, but you're actually going to be fueling your intake. Thanks for joining me on this segment from Wellbeing Wednesdays, as heard live on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who might find it helpful and subscribe so you never miss a show. Want to catch the live broadcast? Well, you can tune in Wednesdays from 12 till 2 p.m. on 88.6 Plenty Valley FM, or find my info on Wellbeing Wednesdays with Snez, the Facebook group. Take care, stay healthy, and remember, it's the little choices every day that create big changes. Talk soon.